The Lost World is arguably the best or one of the best movies in the entire franchise, and although part 2 will always be my favorite, I get ratioed by the masses. Like, if you ask someone what's their favorite movie in the Jurassic trilogy, chances are that most will say the first or second movie. I mean, we got the closest thing to a raptor massacre, and possibly one of the worst deaths Jurassic Park has ever produced. Not to mention Bonnie and Clyde, who just exist there, on that section of Sorna. There is literally nothing that could even make eye contact with Buck and Doe. But what about another dinosaur pair? Like, literally, the next pair is from a movie called Dinosaur. A story about friendship, growth, and... Oh, well, that's not good. Yeah, without stalling further, how would Disney's Carnotaurs do in the Lost World? And like all of these videos, I have to remind you that while size can definitely be an asset, it could also be the very downfall of something depending on the ecosystem. So let's see just how well the oversized Disney's Carnotaurs would do on an island filled with genetically modified dinosaurs. Just before we start, I mentioned in my last video that I will be bringing back the voting system for the channel, which basically means me posting certain video ideas and you guys vote on which ones make it. Already posted a poll, and within like 10 minutes, the ratio already tells me the topic I'm gonna have to post on Thursday, so join the Discord and cast your vote once or twice a week. And aside from this, you can show off your art, which will make me feel sorry for even picking up a pencil, build maps, or just spam anything related to the past. But with that complete, let's get into the video. So let's do an overview of these absurdly oversized Carnotaurs before we drop them on Sorna. I'ma get the one thing everyone wants to know out of the way before we start anything else, which is the size. It's common knowledge that they are much bigger than the real Carnotaurs, but even if the real Carnotaurs was scaled up to be just as long as Disney's, they still would not be as heavy. And that's because Disney's Carnos have a Tyrannosaurus body plan. Before they actually made it on screen, the pair were meant to be T-Rexes that could actually talk, but they didn't want to be generic and put a T-Rex in there like every other movie, so they plopped in two Carnos that were twice the weight of the average elephant, and yeah, they called it a day. There's a lot of size estimates for these guys out there, but for the larger of the two individuals, the very lowest size I could find places it between 9 and 10 tons, with a 14 meter length. And the very highest, while using calculations and comparing real life Tyrannosaurus specimen, gives it a weight of more than 20 tons and a length of over 70 meters. I will admit, even though it's highly possible, and these calculations could very well be accurate, I don't know if I'd place them that high. I would say the big one is around 13 tons or a bit bigger. But for the sake of keeping things even slightly fair, we're going to use the lowest estimates possible for the bigger one. So it's going to be 10 tons and the smaller one is going to be a little over 8. Actually, I should in fact put 13 since it's more accurate, but the video is going to end too quickly, so for the sake of this video and this video alone, I'm going to use the lowest estimates. With the sizes out of the way, let's get into more interesting stats. As said by Kron, they were driven out by the giant asteroid since they don't usually travel this far north, but they do travel or follow their herds down to a certain extent, which is how the one we see at the start of the movie ended up in the nesting grounds, but they ordinarily wouldn't track them down the entire migration. Their large size, accompanied by just how fast they move, means their metabolism is through the roof, as one kills an adult iguanodon and not too long after, the pair is back at it again looking for food. That's 4 to 6 tons of meat they scoff down in a few hours and are hungry again. I guess if they had a bull in their prime like Kron or Bruton, they could be full, but who knows. And another interesting thing to note is that in 5 seconds, one of the Carnos is tearing flesh from the iguanodon and just eating it. Yeah, Disney did not give a damn back then. Now we got twerking red pandas and whatever this is. Anyway, either that smaller Carno killed that iguanodon in 2 to 3 seconds, or just pinned the poor fellow to the floor and ate him alive. Now for something that is this big, you would not expect it to move quickly or even be agile. Yet the bigger one of the two was shooting up a cliff faster than Kron, who's a quadruped. He literally is lighter and has more stability, yet was slower. There was someone who tried arguing with me saying that my weight for Kron was wrong because a real iguanodon didn't weigh that much. I kinda lost brain cells trying to listen to his argument, because how are you gonna treat Kron like an accurate dinosaur when there are Carnotaurs more than 5 times the size of the real one in the movie? So first of all, real iguanodons don't have the horn on the nose. Like, they had it in the 90s, but not anymore. It's just a touch Disney did for the bulls in their prime. Kron is 7 tons at the lower ends, and the Carno picked him up and threw him more than 40 feet away into a rock. And in the comical turns of events, the Carno went band for band with Aldar, who thought he wanted the smoke. He did not. Aldar decided to slap the Carno to the face and make it step back. Safe to say the bruiser took it seriously, because he sent Aldar in the air when he tail slapped him. In terms of durability, there's only one feat we get, but it's a good one, as one of the Carnos survived tons of debris falling on it as the ceiling collapsed. Bro was literally buried on the rubble. Sad to say, one did die though, and the one who did survive walked away with a limp and not too long after magically healed itself since it was running and walking around just fine. Bro got a healing buff. With all of these stats in mind, they behave more like real animals than most of the Jurassic theropods. They are like the Zeb of their universe. They were just looking for food. If you don't kill enough to eat, you starve, and if you starve, well, you die. While a lot of the Jurassic dinosaurs will commit war crimes. I mean, they track the herds to a certain extent and survive off that. Only now are they going all the way because the asteroid forced them out. And then there's the famous scene where one stood back to let the herd pass instead of attacking it. People are calling the Carno a coward for this. I'm sorry, is it supposed to just rush into tons and tons of horn and bone while there's an isolated and more easily available meal off in the distance? So are you gonna call a lion a coward from running away from a herd of cave buffalo? The thing just chose the route that would lead to the least amount of injury. Even at the start, it did a mock charge to try and get the herd to scatter so the weak could be isolated. But of course, Aldar made the herd band together, so the plan failed. A Jurassic theropod would probably not care and probably still try its luck, at least the Crashouts like the Indominus and the Spinosaurus. So these guys, despite being very inaccurate physically, they at least behave somewhat like real animals, but how about genetically modified ones? How do they fare? Well, Sorna, at least the side that was in the Lost World, has a wide variety of dinosaurs and they've been in the wild for generations now, so they know how to defend themselves, unlike the ones who are kind of domesticated in later installments, especially the Stegosaurs, who have the I'll kill you and your entire generation mentality if you mess with their young. When it comes to carnivores, it could be more if you put in novel animals, but I won't, since it's just the ones shown in the Lost World movies I'll be mentioning. We have the iconic striped raptors who patrol that side of the island and will hunt in large packs to take down more prey, but will also split up occasionally. Like all Jurassic Park raptor variants, they are freakishly large for the animals they are based off of and have superhuman strength. Their hides are thick and they have enough power to tear through the hides of larger bullet-resistant theropods. And speaking of those bullet-resistant megatheropods, we have the two main dinosaurs, Buck and Doe. The T-Rex bear who did the true hero of the movie dirty by tearing him in half. At the time of the Lost World, Buck and Doe were anywhere between 7 and 8 tons, so not as big as they were in Dominion. The same with Rexy, who was 7 point something tons in the first movie and was able to keep up with the car, but was then 9.4 tons or somewhere close to that in Jurassic World and can't outrun a fit person now. Doe at this time might be just over a little 7 tons at the higher ends, and Buck at his very largest during the Lost World would be 8 on the dot, and even this seems a bit too large for him at this time, so not quite the 9 ton or more range as in Dominion. The two are notoriously protective over their chick, Junior, with Buck going on a rampage in San Diego looking for him, destroying buses with ease, flipping cars, and casually breaking brick walls. So it's safe to say that they would literally travel through hell like Godzilla if it meant finding and protecting their son. But would this parental instinct be enough to save them from Disney's demon pair? Well, we're about to find out. So in terms of climate, I mean, it would be mostly similar. I won't say the desert is the optimal biome for the Carnos since they were just there to find food, and they do just find a lush, almost tropical area, so the tropics of Sorna should be just fine with the dry and wet seasons, since there's shade for extreme temperatures if it gets too much. In terms of prey selection, there's a good amount, and thankfully there isn't some talking iguanodon to turn different species against them. But with that said, Sorna's herbivores are still wild for the most part, and the ones who can't defend themselves absolutely will. So stegosaurs that weigh as much as the largest bull African elephants will band together to defend themselves, and they do not play around. And individual stegosaurs may be tempting to the pair, but as a herd they likely won't target them unless desperate. There's also sauropods. The reason I mentioned the sauropods is because Baleen, who's a mature brachiosaurus, fears these carnos, so she likely knows even a pair would be enough to bring her down. Like, she was willing to be left behind and stayed on the floor, but the moment she heard there was a pair of Carnotaurs, she immediately sprung into action and tried to get away. So it's likely that at least as a pair, they could bring them down, but again, they seems to be more of a last resort type of thing. There's still many dinosaurs for them to take down, like hadrosaurs and so on. So the food for the most part should be fine. When it comes to competition, there isn't a lot of variety, at least in the movies. The compies would probably get a heart attack if they saw them, and the raptors, even though if a large group came together they would attempt to take on a single megaceropod, would not even glance at the pair of horned abominations that are bigger than the current rulers of the island. Well, this part of it at least. Those current rulers are the biggest and kinda the only competition when it comes to prey. So elephant in the room, the bigger Carno is still at least 2 tons bigger than Buck with the higher estimates, and the smaller one is his size. So both are bigger than Doe. Now in terms of territory, the Carnos might be curious when they sense theropods not too far off in their weight bracket, and when they meet, it would be interesting. We all know that Jurassic Park T-Rexes do not care a damn about size, since they will take on things bigger and stronger than them, even though they lose. Now, this aggression gets amped up further when it's a pair protecting their offspring. While not a totally accurate comparison, female grizzlies have been seen chasing away males more than 50% heavier than them to protect the cubs, and with both parents in this Rex pair being this aggressive for junior safety, the sheer brash and aggressive behavior may be possibly enough to even deter the Carnos, who will choose to avoid serious injury unless it's absolutely necessary, and just, move to a different location. But these are Jurassic Park T-Rexes and they do not share the same mindset. Chances are that they might try to kill the Carnos, and if this happens, well, the situation changes. In a full-on fight between the two, well, the four, like fight to the death, I got the Carnos. I mean, the smaller one is buck size and the bigger one is decently heavier. Both species are capable of seriously damaging each other, but we've seen just how rabid the Carnos themselves could be when it comes to their survival, so with both teams fighting, I'd give most of the winning outcomes to the Carnos, like 6 or 7 times out of 10. Their size and power advantage just gives them the edge. This would have been even worse if I added the more likely weight of 13 to 14 tons for the biggest specimen, so it's a good thing I didn't add that. They won't come out unscathed though. The Carnos will definitely be somewhere trying to sleep off all their injuries, and like I said, this will likely only happen if Buck and Doe actually go through with it to try and protect Junior. The Carnos won't be full-on aggressors. They'd likely try to intimidate the Rex pair, but if that doesn't work, they'd probably just move on, seeing that they act more naturally. They really gotta want that territory to pick a death match with the Rexes, or have to be forced into it by Buck and Doe. Actually, could also be for food, like if they want to kill the Rex's mate. But in the off chance that Buck and Doe don't initiate the deathmatch, I'd say that the two species would live in some weird, awkward truce. Like they would avoid each other but won't go out of their way to start a war. Regardless, the Carnos likely will soon have eggs of their own, and if they mature as fast as the Rexes, their population could rise fairly quickly. Although the sheer amount of raptors would likely weed out the juveniles or younger ones under a year. I mean, the same likely happened to Junior, with him being the only survivor of a larger clutch. So would the Carnos survive the Lost World? Yep. Yes, they would, without much difficulty. Like in either interaction with the Rexes, it does not matter. If they decide to have some very thin truce or even a dead battle with the Rexes, they survive either way. So with only 2 competitors, at least for the time being, and the island full with acceptable prey, I'd give Disney's Carno pair a survivability score of 90%. The few points I doxed off are the sheer amount of small predators that would possibly kill a lot, and I do mean a lot, of their future offspring. And then later on, inbreeding will be a serious issue. Wait, I'm actually now thinking about this. As future generations go on, it is not looking that bright, but for the current pair we saw in Disney's Dinosaur, they do just fine on that part of Sorno. I also didn't mention the Spinosaurus because he does not appear on that side of the island. He lives more on the lush forested side, and he'd get clapped if he tries to take on both Carnos at the same time. Actually, Buck and Doe could be the reason he avoids that side of the island, but I don't know, so I won't say. Anyway, that's basically it for this video, folks. There's gonna be more Buck and Doe content tomorrow based on what everyone voted for in the Discord poll, so yeah, next one is gonna be up by Sunday. Anyway, let me know your thoughts in the comments. Would Buck and Doe risk death to keep Junior safe, or would they just try and ward off the Demon Carnos? I'll see you guys tomorrow.